Hi, my name is Simon Headley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Headley, and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, somebody who I've got to see and watch her grow over the years, and I can't wait to have her share what she can be sharing on the show today. She's somebody that's really blown away the cobwebs of what's possible, and I'm astounded by what she's done, especially over the lockdown period. So without further ado, Monica, welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, so let's sort of kick off. For people that may not know you yet or haven't caught up with your recent resets, who are you and what are you focused on today?
Yeah, so I am Monica. Moni, people call me Monica Millares. Who am I? That's a great question. So I'm not going to say what do I do for work. So I am a woman who loves life. And as part of that, I tend to look for different things all the time and to live a fulfilled life. I am a loving person that has many passions. That's who I am.
I love
what
that.
I do for work. What I do for work is different.
What do you do for work at the moment?
Yeah, for work. So I have a niche career and I build digital banks from scratch. So that's my career as such. And I also have a passion project and I have a podcast. So that's what I did during lockdown, the big reset, the big podcast.
Indeed. I love how you just go, I just build banks. One of the things I do. We'll get into that maybe more in the show.
Yeah, it's cool.
If you look back on your life until now, what have been the biggest shifts and resets you've been through?
Oh, it's been too many. So the biggest shifts, I think, like talking about career, the biggest shift has been not putting my identity into work. Like most of us, we're like, oh, I'm a banker, I'm a podcaster, I'm a lawyer, I'm a consultant. And whenever we have struggles at work, then we have inner struggles like a lot. So over the years, I've found that that was not healthy. So over the years, I've made an effort to decouple my identity from what I do. And that has been one of the biggest shifts that I've had. And it's ongoing effort. It's not just like happens once. Like we all have an ego, of course. So it's like constant evolution and constant effort.
Yeah, I really get that, especially after my banking career. It's very common for who you are and what you do to get merged together. And it's a very, especially in the modern world, like, so what are you doing and who are you and what results are you getting, and money stuff all gets very combined often. And obviously, you're not a native English speaker. Where were you born? And obviously now you're out in Asia. So you've been through some geographic resets as well?
Yes, I have. So I'm originally from Mexico. I grew up in Mexico. And then in my mid-20s, I moved to the UK. I was almost for a decade in the UK. And then I had a great opportunity to move to Asia. So it's been 5 years. And now I'm based in Malaysia. And every time that I change countries is a big reset. That's the right word. It's like a new life, new challenges, new culture, new vibe. Time to reinvent.
I think you like that. Is that true? You like these resetting periods?
I think so. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah.
I've definitely seen
you.
Opportunity. I've definitely seen you sort of step up and step out more, like the podcast and things you mentioned. And I'm just curious, if you think about pausing, stopping, and resetting, which of those is hardest for you, and why do you think that is?
Oh, so resetting is easy because like you say, I like that. Pausing, I think it's the most difficult because just by my personality type, I tend to have a lot of energy. So I go, 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 go all the time, go, 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 until I'm too tired. And then it's like pause. But yeah, it's like pausing is the most difficult because I have a active life with tons of energy, but sometimes it's just too much. So it's just having the right balance between doing too much and having enough time to rest and pause and evaluate life.
And obviously, with the day job, you've launched this new bank. I think it's Big Pay out in Malaysia. So you had the president there coming to these launch parties and things. That launching of a startup, it's like non-stop, right? It's like there's always another event, like more momentum, more growth. And is it quite challenging to take that pause at work as well?
Well, I've learned how to do it. It's been over 7 years that I'm in the fintech industry. So this is the second fintech that I work in. And I think, yeah, we never stop. That's a very good point. Like the fintech launched 5 years ago, but then every new product feels like a new launch. And then the company keeps growing and growing and growing. So it's new challenges. So no, we never stop. So it's a skill to learn and develop and master such that it doesn't lead to burnout. But it's easy to get carried away, very easy.
I get that. And it goes back, I think, to that first thing you were sharing about separating who you are from what it is you're doing. I'm just curious, what other lessons you wish you could give your younger self and why?
Oh, celebrate you. That's the biggest one. So until probably 2 to 3 years ago, if you asked me this question, I could answer, know yourself. Because if you know yourself, then you can refine the path that you need. And then I think you can really navigate life and create a life that you want. However, I believe that we are not taught to celebrate our wins. Therefore, we're not taught to celebrate ourselves often. Therefore, we compare ourselves with everyone else all the time. And that's where many people have imposter syndrome, because like you start comparing yourself with others. However, if we start celebrating all the little things that we do every single day for ourselves, for others, for our life, then it's the next level of confidence starts building within you. The next level of fire, the next level of energy starts building up. And then I always say, hey, just imagine that I used to, if when I was in primary school, when I was a teenager, when I was in uni, how my life could have been like so different if I appreciated and celebrated me for who I was instead of focusing on who I was not. So definitely celebrate yourself, celebrate you.
I really like that.
That's the biggest lesson.
Yeah, and that explains a bit about how I've seen you sort of blossoming over the last it feels like a decade or so now. It's interesting. You were always confident, but you seem to be like super confident now. You seem to be much more confident, much more yourself in a whole different way. I'm curious, when you say celebrating yourself, what does that look like? So if someone's listening in and they're not used to doing that, what do they do to get started? How do they approach that?
Oh, that's a great question. So I guess like there's the fun way, the practical way, the formal way. So one of the things that I do that people could do is basically say, why do I like myself? And like, just like say, yeah, I like that. Like I like my hair. I like how I dress today. It can be like little things. Or what am I celebrating today? Oh, I'm celebrating that I said I was going to cut sugar and today I didn't. Yesterday I did. I did eat sugar, but today I didn't. So I'm celebrating that. What else? I also celebrate the bad things. So let's say if I had a rough day or an argument with someone, then it's like, what do I celebrate? Oh, I celebrated that I managed this a little bit better than last time. And then I just keep celebrating all the little things and embracing both, like the positive and the negative and the micro wins. So yeah, end of the day, just write down, what am I celebrating today? And you can celebrate others. It's just asking the question to your brain, what am I celebrating today? And then the answer will come. And if you have nothing to think about, it's like, what do I like about myself? And then you just say, yeah, I like this. And if nothing comes to your mind, it's like, oh, what do I like about others? And if nothing comes to your mind, just keep changing the question until you find something that you like. And you do that micro shift to focus on the positive.
I love it. I'm curious whether that's part of the Mexican heritage you bring to the conversation. Were your family good at celebrating growing up?
No, okay. It's not a Mexican thing. No, it was more of this was one of the insights that I got during COVID lockdowns. It was difficult for everyone. And during lockdown, I live on my own. So I had a lot of me time. And at the same time, a lot of I'm getting anxiety time. So it came to me as it came to me as a not as a coping mechanism, but as an insight for International Women's Day that somebody asked me exactly this question. What could you tell your younger self? And I was downstairs. I remember perfectly. I was downstairs. It was dark by the moon. I was writing in my notebook, just like with the phone, with the light from the phone. And then what I wrote was celebrate you. And since then I started doing it much more. So no, it's not a Mexican thing. It's not a Latin thing. It's an insight from lockdowns.
I love it. I didn't mean that in a bad way. I just think sometimes different cultures find it hard to put music on, to sing and dance. And I think celebration's a really interesting part of life. And especially over lockdown, so much of us, for myself, celebrations about food. You and I would get together in London, have a coffee, have food, talk. Those are the moments of celebration. And when you're by yourself, it takes like to bring that energy out. Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah.
Now, for me, one of the ways I celebrate when I enjoy is listening to books and watching movies. I read books, I listen to books, and I watch movies. I'm curious if any books or movies have helped you on this journey to pause, stop, and reset.
Yes, this is an interesting one because I was thinking about the whole concept of pause, stop, reset. And I have over 100 books in my house. Wow. I have many books. I like them. When I moved from the UK to Asia, I was like, no, I'm bringing them with me. They are my friends. So I have all these books here. And I was like, which one would it be? One that really helped me. It's not what's my favorite book, but the one that helped me to pause and stop and then reset. And this one is a book, mainly for women. It's called Red Moon. And the author is Miranda Gray. And basically, she talks about the moon cycle, women's cycle as such, and how us as women, we have different energies depending on where we are in our cycle. And sometimes our cycle synchronizes with the cycle of the moon. And then when we are in our ladies' days, those are times to stop, basically, to pause a little bit, to listen to your body, to nurture. So while many people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, you can do that, you can do anything during those days. Since I read that book, I was more like, no, just go with the cycle of the moon, just go with the cycle of nature. And those days are to stop and to pause and to take care of you. So that was a very important book, and properly it had a lot of impact in my life and my habits.
That's a really interesting book suggestion, not one I've come across, but I love the aspects of cycles and seasons and how it impacts us in life and in business. And I'm just curious what movies maybe had a similar impact, or movies that you've turned to when you had to pause, stop, and reset.
Oh, I don't have go-to movies as such. Like my favorite movie as such, it's probably Braveheart, but it's not like a stop, pause and reset. But now that I said that, what's his name? Wayne Dyer, his documentary. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times in the past 2 years. And it's exactly that. I watch it when I have to pause and stop and reset. The message is the same, but I kind of need to hear the message again. And funny enough, he talks about the cycles of life.
He does, yeah. He did a lot of studying in the Tao Te Ching and the idea of flow. Wayne was a good friend of many of my mentors and friends over the years. And even that Braveheart movie, I just had that flashback now of that cry for freedom, right? It is those moments that inspire us. And that's what I love about movies. And it is interesting how sometimes the same movie, the same book, you read it on a different day and get a whole different message from it. And thank you for sharing that book there about the Red Moon. A really interesting book that I think it's really interesting. So many women in the modern world are trying to compete and not really stepping into the ways they can be in the world that are actually incredibly powerful. I've always been blown away by the women in my world that are just humongous creators of life, of business. And I look forward to more strong women sort of stepping up into the business world in a whole different way. Not that they aren't already, they don't really help anybody, I'm sure, too. So we're starting that journey. And I think you have a bright career as more people get to hear your podcast, see what you're up to. And I just love how you so effortlessly reset from Mexico to the UK to Malaysia. You seem to skip around life in a really flowing way, which I love.
Thank you.
One of the things that people like to get from this podcast is ways they can help navigate their own pausing, stopping, and resetting. I'm just curious, when you think about the event or experience that most caused you to have to do that, what helped you through it? What helped you navigate your resets?
Oh, that's a beautiful, very deep question that relates to your previous statement. That kind of I just go flowing through life, jumping around, like from Mexico, the UK, Malaysia, trying to make the best out of this experience. And that, like, the more I get to know myself, I think the event that shaped me the most is that my mom passed away when I was 20, and it was an unexpected event. And her favorite quote used to be, "Live every day as if it was the first day of your life and your last day of your life." And I think that event, not only it was life-changing, but it was the one that I got most wisdom from, because I guess I learned and experienced mortality very, very young. And when I coupled that with mom's favorite quote, it was shoot, she was right. Any day can be your last day. And as part of that event, I learned that what we called life is too short. I learned that from experience, life is too short and it can end anytime. So why worry? I was very young back then, and I had to have like all these responsibilities all of a sudden and become an adult all of a sudden. So it was more of when my friends at uni were complaining about nonsense, I was like, dude, like you have absolutely nothing to complain about. Like life can be very tough. And at the same time, we're so privileged just like by being healthy as such and by having parents. That's what I used to say back then. So that event marked my life so much that it shaped my personality and my outlook. So what's the worst that can happen if I move countries? I will not like it, and that's it. But it will be an adventure. And I think that's what's shaped me a lot.
I really get that. I lost my father when I was 2. And it's that sort of wake up call to life. I'm curious, when you were 20, when you sort of had that jump into adulthood, what helped you get through it? What helped you? Because I love how you phrase it, how you're being with it, but that's sort of quite a journey to get from most people's experience of grief to there. What helped you sort of mature in that way, to transform in that way?
I think I'll respond from Monica at 20 and then Monica throughout the years. When that happened, I was in uni. It was my first year at uni. And one of my friends, she was like, "Oh, you should like take half a year off and just like sit with it. And I was like, no way. Like, mom would never want me to do that. On the contrary, I'm going to make the most out of this and I'm going to study really hard. So if I am like a high achiever and a semi-workaholic sometimes and all that stuff, probably that was my coping mechanism. It was more of I was in pain, I was grieving, and what got me through it was just like focusing on something that was important to me back then, that it was uni, like, and making the most out of uni. So I studied really hard as such. And well, I've always been a kind of nerd studying type of girl, and work, like hard worker. So that helped me push through. And that helped me not go into alcohol nor drugs, not all of that. It was kind of like positive channeling, or the most positive coping mechanism that I found back then. But then that was not enough, because the downside of doing that was avoidance. So I was avoiding pain. And when I went to the UK, well, now that I look back, it was kind of fleeing, 5 years later. I moved when I was 25. It was like 5 years of just going through uni and not addressing the pain. So when I went to the UK and then I did my master's, did the coping mechanism that I used to know. When I finished my master's, then I started working, and then that pain was still there in other shapes, but it was still there. Then I had what I call the quarter of life crisis. And because of that, then I discovered coaching and personal development and therapy. And since then, it was like 10 years of coaching in a way or another, different elements of life. But I remember while I was in Malaysia, so in the past 5 years, I think that's when I had the most healing from mom's passing. So it took me many years. So I don't think that the coping mechanism that I used back then, that was focusing on work, focusing on studying, was the best strategy. On the contrary, right now, if I had to go through that experience again, I would say sit with the pain and then address the pain and talk the pain, and like do go to therapy. Back then it was not there was stigma around therapy. Now it's not. So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. And it's really helpful. And I love, again, the groundedness you bring to it. As you say, even a decade ago, the idea of asking for help, especially in the banking world, was like, no, you must be a strong character. You must have no challenges, right? I've actually been doing various counseling work for over 2 decades. And then while in the banking career, I'd be helping people through their divorces, through their losses of cancer and things like that, which they wouldn't want to go to talk to HR about. So I can really get that. And I think it goes back to the cycles, right? You and I aren't 20 anymore. We've had some decades experience. We've seen different worlds out there. And it's just the start of this navigating journey. And I think that's how it always goes. And I love, the reality is we throw ourselves into things, and that gets you to that next phase when you can sometimes take a breath. And obviously with lockdown, especially, given us all that moment of self-reflection, while the world itself is changing and shifting. And I know people listening to this may be looking to shift what's possible for their lives. You've clearly done that in, I think, one extraordinary way. Like, it's blown me away how you travel and do what you do. So I'm just opening a banking thing. It's easy. Opening a new podcast, a morning podcast, this, that, the other. It's all easy. It's fun. And it's great to see. And I'm just curious what suggestions you'd give for somebody listening that's maybe going through hard times, looking to reset, or they're doing things that are good, but they're still looking to get more juice out of life. What would be your suggestions for them?
Yes. So I think for me, starting the podcast was life-changing. And unlike many people that are like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast because it's cool, or I'm going to start a podcast because, I don't know, because I'm bored or whatever, because it's good for the business. When I started the podcast, I was kind of half depressed. I had just broken up with someone, and it was like still in semi-lockdown. And I like putting quotes on my window and mirror and walls and all that. So I was kind of down. It was like a difficult time. And at some point, I don't know, like one of the quotes spoke to me, or just like the two different quotes like made different sense in my mind. And I was like, I need to reinvent myself. That's it. I was like, I'm done with this. Like, it's too painful. I just need to reinvent myself. And then my next question was, so how about I start by doing what I love? I was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like, oh, I used to coach a lot. I used to read all these books a lot. Oh, I used to, at some point I wanted to start a talk show. So it was by being in that low place that it was like, enough is enough. And then I just started asking myself, like, what do I like? What did I used to do that I liked that I don't do anymore? And I had the intention to reinvent myself. And as I started the podcast, I did not start with a lot of passion nor vision. It was just like, let me try this out. Let me try this out. Let me try this little other thing out. And little by little, week by week, I was like, oh, I had like so much fear, I think, imposter syndrome, and why would people want to listen to me type of fears in my head when I first started. But week after week, I was like, oh, actually, it's fun. Oh, actually, it's not that difficult. But at the same time, I was like, this is so difficult. So it was just a dance between everything. I was just doing it for fun. It didn't have any outcome attached to the process of podcasting. It was just let me reinvent myself and let's see where this goes. No outcome attached. And that's it. That's how I started. And that's what I would recommend someone who's not feeling at their best right now, that it's more of a, hey, do something that you love, something you enjoy, and do it again. And just get the feedback from your body, from your emotions, and just do it one more time. Don't put any pressure on you. Just like keep trying, keep testing. That doesn't work out, try something else. And then you'll see. And if we couple that with the celebrate you kind of a mantra, let's say, if you do that, and then end of the day, you write down, what do I like about me? What do I need to celebrate today? Then that starts a positive cycle. And little by little, day by day, as difficult as it may be, then time passes by. And then you start having a little bit more positive outlook. And that's it. There's no hack. It's day by day.
Which is the ultimate hack, right? My friend talks about infinite patience producing immediate results. But I love that. It's why we have the journal. And it is that small little step every day, once a week, even once a month, but ideally just focusing on it, whether it's just, I spent a minute thinking about that next thing, those little things you do. And over time, you build up that skill. The first time you publish the podcast, it's this brand new, strange, wonderful thing. How many shows have you done now? You're up to like 50 or so, is it more?
37 or so. Yeah, 37. And I keep making like so many mistakes, like so many, like the noise canceling microphone didn't work for the past, I don't know, like 10 episodes. And I'm like, oh, newbie mistake, even though it's not so newbie, but didn't work. But then I am not embarrassed of that. And I'm still posting the episodes because it's part of the journey. It's part of what makes the episode authentic. You cannot replicate the episode, just like you cannot replicate a moment with anyone. It will be unique. Even if you go for lunch, breakfast, dinner with the same person many times, every single time it will be a different moment. So it's the same with a podcast. So it's just part of the journey. And I embrace the quote unquote failures or mistakes as part of the evolution of the podcast. It's part of the art. I think it's an art. It's an expression.
Again, it's really, for me, I've known you for some time, and it's the same you, but different in a way that's really tangible for me. And it's like, what happened? And I know you're explaining what happened if you're listening along. Trust me, like, just try this stuff out for a while. And it's funny. You'll get to hear Rachel, you get to hear Carlos, and there's a pattern emerging of people just trying things on. There isn't always a cunning plan. There isn't, by doing this is my next decade. And then in the process, finding things you enjoy, new connections opening up, new dots emerging. And it wouldn't surprise me if you see Monica on stages around the world in the future, sharing her stories in whole different ways, which I think is really quite exciting because you have these language skills and really smart skills. You've always been really smart. And it's that ability to harness that, I think, that we all have if we can get ourselves out of our own way, which isn't always easy by ourselves. So we like to wrap up with like a focus for our listeners. And if there's one takeaway you'd love them to be left with, what would that be? They're sort of talking to their friends in the office or on a chat thing tomorrow. They're like, oh, I heard Monica sharing. What's the takeaway you really want to be left with?
I was going to say celebrate you, but no, it's not that. The biggest takeaway is breathe. Oh, it's just your topic. It's like pause, stop, reset. So the biggest takeaway is life can be difficult. Life is complex. Otherwise, it's like we couldn't have all these dilemmas if it was like straightforward. Life can be complex because there's so many things around us, so many influences that we're not aware of. We're not aware of how we're wired. So whenever we are struggling for whichever reason, physical, mental, emotional pain, whatever it is, as big or little as it can be, stop and breathe. And when we breathe physically, we change our physiology as such, and then it helps us slow down. And once we slow down, then we have a different perspective. Then with a different perspective, then life changes. So breathe properly. That could be my biggest takeaway.
I love it. And the reason I'm loving it is it's actually, when I think back, I've literally had people go, Simon, just stop, breathe with me. And they spent 2 or 3 minutes having me take these deep, slow breaths, learning box breath. And you've got me inspired. You had a couple of breath things, I think, into the portal for Pause, Start, Reset. And it's right, it's where all this stuff comes from. I didn't invent Pause, Start, Reset. I sort of brought it together. But it is this sort of trying to make it simple. And often when we're caught up, we forget that we can take those breaths just before we sort of jump into action, jump into reaction. It's so valuable and so easy not to do. But it makes all the difference. And when you sort of feel out of control, just giving yourself that ability to breathe. And there's such great resources now online and in books to help you learn how to do that. I love that you brought that to the surface.
Yes,
really useful.
I actually, one of the things I did during lockdown was, during the past 2 years, I became a meditation instructor, but I also became a pranayama breathing instructor. So yeah, it's fascinating just to go through the breathing cycles. There's so many classes and so many resources online as well.
I don't think I know you did the pranayama stuff. I did it like 15 years ago. So that's a small synergies that happen in our dances of life. That's really interesting. And I think maybe you can lead a workshop for us online in the future. If you do your workshops online, that'd be great.
Yes.
So one thing I love is that there are people in the world that I haven't come across or haven't maybe reacted to or responded to the way you might have. Having gone through this, are there any people that you think would make a great, amazing guest? And why would you love to listen to their answers?
Yeah, I think rather than giving specific names of people, I would love to hear more about women, like entrepreneurial women that have gone through struggles and they have a lot of wisdom, but they haven't shared that. So I think
100%.
There's a lot of collective wisdom in the female, let's say, community. And we need to start sharing more of that.
100%. If you're one of my missions now for a decade or so, looking to help showcase and champion incredible female speakers. My mum is quite private, but she's one of those people. And it's such a joy when you get people revealing what they've learned, usually very quietly. They've sort of shaped it over decades. And such immense stuff out there. Hopefully we'll hear from Bonnie and others in the future on the podcast. And if you do come across any, either you, Monica, or you listening in, get hold of us. We're really easy to get hold of, and we'd love to get more female entrepreneurs up on the podcast show for sure. And actually have other women helping host these podcasts as well. The questions are always the same. The answers change, but the questions are the questions. So we are coming up to that time to wrap up. I'm sure people may want to learn more about you, what you're doing. What's the best way for them to connect with you? Is that on LinkedIn? And how do you want people to reach out?
Yes. So you can find me exactly on LinkedIn. Just like search my name, Monica Millares. You can find me in my podcast in Spotify, Apple, and all the big platforms. That the name is Mind of Success. And I'm starting a TikTok channel. So that one you can find me on Moni Millares, just like my name, but in short.
I love it. And for those listening that aren't visual, it's Millares. Is that right? That's correct for your surname, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. It'll be on the podcast notes, so check out pause.reset for that. Monica, it's such a joy talking to you. I know you have an evening after your day at work there in Malaysia. Thank you for joining us today for pause.reset. I'm always astounded by what I hear from my guests. And I thought I knew you, and I'm learning more about you in this show. And I'm sure there's more to get out of you, get more juice to find as we progress, and hopefully you'll share more of your breathing, your pranayama, and other ideas with us. Do check out her podcast. Do check her out on LinkedIn. This is somebody who is on the rise, and somebody I think you can get some insights and glimpses from to help you on your journey as you pause.reset. Personally, what I found most valuable was just the honesty, the realness, and this reminder to celebrate each day, like your mum said, like it is the very first day of your life and like it could be your last. This is a common thread we keep coming to, and learning how to celebrate ourselves, which is such a difficult thing for us stiff upper lip British people, he says half jokingly, but it really is to enjoy life. That joy is such a vital bit. And it's so easy to get caught up in minutiae and forget how lucky we are when all the things seemingly are happening in the world the way they do. So with that said, it really is a chance for us to pause.reset. I've enjoyed having you on the show, Monica. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Thank you, Simon. It's been an amazing conversation. It's been a pleasure to be in the show. Thank you.
Well, it's a gem to have you with us. We'll get the show up and out there, and hopefully we'll see you live in the world very soon.
Yes.
To make sure you get all the updates from Monica, do go to the website. That's pause.reset.com. And make sure you head to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, give us a comment and some 5 stars on what you heard from Monica today. You take some action on. And I can't wait to see you next time. Monica, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you all next time for the show. This is pause.reset, stopping for now. Once again, I'm Simon Headley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause Stop Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value, and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.